Man, you actually backed up on my truck and told Puff, man, here go the keys.
That's
And
right.
he drove off.
He did.
Yeah.
Never look, never
Dang.
look back. And we don't get a lot of credit. We'll get into it more, but right now, as you know, I recently launched a new platform for hip hop called Breakbeat,
Right.
and we're doing a podcast network. And we have a variety of podcasts. Some of them are like this, type of conversational podcasts, but we're also doing the other form of podcast, which is more of like an audio documentary. So one of the projects that I want to show you the trailer when we get a break, but we're almost finished. We're doing the story of the Unsigned Hype. It's called "It Was All a Dream: The Untold Story of Unsigned Hype." It's an eight episode series that tells the whole backstory. How do we start the column? How do we find these artists? How do they get their deals? All of that. And that's going to be dropping this summer.
And what's that name again?
It Was All a Dream: The Untold Story of
Your
Unsigned
network,
Hype.
your network.
The network is Breakbeat.
And they can find it
On anywhere you listen to podcasts, Apple, Spotify, and then we have the Breakbeat Media YouTube channel where the visual podcasts are on the channel. And I can go into because we got a bunch of incredible shows that we're
Okay, so
doing.
you got a lot of them. So since you birthed that unhype, you seen the seeds grow to big old trees. So I'm gonna ask you this: give me your top five now. Biggie,
Top five.
Biggie, Jay-Z, Nas, Jadakiss, Eminem, and Pop. Was that five or six? Well, that's
Those are yours?
Yeah. No. I want you to give me the order out of there right there. If you got somebody, give me. I want the one who you like in that order. You might got somebody outside of them, but who you like with those in order.
Let me see if I
And then
remember what you said.
outside order. I said Biggie, Jay-Z,
Yeah.
Tupac, Eminem, and Jadakiss, and Nas.
Okay. For me, it would be Pop, Big.
In that order right now.
Yeah.
Okay.
Pop, Big.
We ain't gonna cut the show. We gonna keep it going. But go ahead though. So, Pop, Big,
Pop,
go ahead.
Big, Nas, and was it five? Pop, Big,
Yeah,
Nas,
Eminem,
Jay-Z,
and
Eminem.
Jadakiss.
Oh yeah, well, so that's six. Pop, Big, Nas, Kiss and Jay. Right, I don't know. I could go either way.
You ain't with that?
And Eminem would be the last one.
Okay, so it sounds like you had your own. You got your own you want to say besides them? It sounds like you had somebody else.
I mean, Pac, Big, Nas is definitely in mind. Man, I mean, it's so hard because of all the different eras, but, Rakim is still, to me, one of the greatest and just such an important artist. But, but then, I can't overlook ones that came later, Lil Wayne is, is an incredible artist, lyricist, and talent. I might disagree with some of his views and things, but when it comes to
talent, you gotta go with
talent, he's definitely up there.
Why you think Karis One don't never get mentioned no more? He used to get mentioned at one time. You think he's just...
Yeah, I mean, Karis One, Big Daddy Kane, that was that first era. They were the greats. Kane, KRS, Rakim, Chuck D, Ice Cube. I mean, Ice Cube, you got to give Ice Cube his props, man. Ice Cube was amazing. Now, after he kind of, veered off track, he left NWA, and he still put out some good albums. But, I mean, Ice Cube has some amazing verses, and, he was incredible.
He was just incredible all on the board, though. He had a vision, special, everything, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Look, and I know you known to be humble. That always been your reputation to be humble and all that, man. But I want you to give us the first time that you knew, source jumping, you're doing your thing, your vision coming in places. You knew, man. Fuck that, I'm the man. When I come in this motherfucking room, they own me. Man, what was that moment? Where was you at, man? And what was that moment? I know you had it, man. Everybody had that moment, man. Where you on was at, man?
You know what?
Oh, don't do that. I don't like how you started that. I don't like how you started that, man. Look, man. Tell your wife, man, that was a long time ago, man. Give me the joke, man. It was a long time ago, man. Before her, man. Tell me, so you give your pass, man. What happened, man? Who was it? What was that? What was you doing on?
Oh, man, it's a hard question. I mean, the moments that come to mind are, hearing Biggie's Juicy on the radio where he shouts out the source, that was an amazing, feeling.
Yeah.
The Source Awards, I mean, that was a dream to make that happen and to turn it from something that started as just a day on Yo MTV Raps into its own event with everybody in hip hop in one room. That was an amazing feeling. The first big one was 94, which wasn't televised. 95 was the one everybody has seen with Suge Knight and everything that happened there.
I was going to ask you about it, now that you said it, but so when Suge Knight and Snoop Dogg had that moment when it was like, New York, you don't got no love for Death Row, and that moment right there, the tension in that room, what was you feeling? Was you like, what was you thinking was going to happen at that moment, man?
I mean, every Source Awards, I was working the whole night. There was no sitting back, relaxing, watching the show, anything.
Right.
I'm all over. I'm, trying to make sure everything's perfect
Right.
and take care of any issues. So when it first jumped off, when Suge went on and said, hey, you don't want nobody dancing your videos, come to Death Row. That's really the starting thing. I was in the back of the theater because I was walking around, just wanted to feel the vibe in the audience and see what was going on back there. And but as soon as I heard that and seen the little commotion going, I made a beeline to get backstage. And I remember Suge had come off stage, and man, he I know because I controlled all the tickets and the seating and everything. I mean, Suge had 70 tickets, and he flew 70
so
people.
he was deep in that joint.
He was super deeper than anybody else.
I'm about to say, they was real confident in it, so it makes sense you got 70 motherfuckers in there.
Right. There was no other label that had 7. Bad Boy might have had 30 tickets, and a few other people, but nobody had 70.
Right.
But part of the reason that I gave him so many tickets was Suge was the one who really stepped up to support the Source Awards in the biggest way, which is he spent over $100,000 on that set. If you remember when that show starts,
with the car joint?
No, when they're in the jail cells,
Okay.
and they all come out and Snoop gets rolled out on a stretcher and they got the DJ up on the top and there's explosions or whatever, because when you doing television, that type of set translates onto TV, makes your show look that much better and bigger, and, we didn't have budgets to do all that kind of stuff ourselves. We had our one main set that we paid for. And when you look, you'll see all the other performances pretty much are on the regular main set that we had, which was a nice set, but his was the only custom, off the chain set. And he, when I called up everybody, all the label heads and, and we're doing the new Source Awards. It's gonna be televised. I really, this is big for hip hop, and want your support. Everybody supported, but he went that extra mile and really, spent a lot of money.
And that was 95?
95. Yeah.
So you talking 95? He did $100,000 on set, and if this 2022, that's equivalent of somebody dropping what on the set? You think now? Probably half a million.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. He showed love. And let me ask you, 'cause I know you get a whole bunch of Benzino questions with the partnership and all that, right? So I'm gonna ask you just one question on the Benzino joint. How much of that business relationship, percentage-wise, was because you feel like he had a good business mind, or you feel like that he had good street credibility? Was it, if you weighed, was it any percentage, 50-50, 80-20, or was it not? Or
I would say, I would say it wasn't weighted towards the street credibility.
Okay.
I wouldn't necessarily just call it business, but just creativity, just ideas and, input that help me and the Source have a certain edge to be able to have someone that was, in the streets that knew kind of what was going on a street level.
That's it. That's what I'm talking about.
And
right.
that kind of helped give
It wasn't
the
more.
source.
It wasn't a protection. It was just to have knowledge of the street.
Right.
Somebody knew how it's moving because you on the top end. Okay.
Right, and that's
Okay.
what set the source apart all those years was our authenticity. Like we were really authentic with what we said and what we put in the magazine, everything. That's what made it so different from when after we started, Rap Pages came along and Vibe came along and eventually Double XL, and everybody was either just copying what we were doing or just doing something else that was not, catered to the streets. And I always, made that a point of, keeping it street and not being scared to like allow that, that connection to be there and that environment, and to be able to experience that environment because most corporations and business people, they don't want no parts of that. That's the last thing most of these people in Hollywood and at these record labels, like they don't have any connections to that world and they don't want that world being up in their face. So,
I came a long way since then. That's all I hear now is the drill and the remote and they send all type of stuff. But yeah.
Well, they'll put the music out,
Right,
you know
right.
what I mean? But you're not going to find
they're not inviting you to cookout, though.
the chairman of Universal Music out in, in South Central or, down here in Southeast somewhere,
Right.
Whatever. They're not going to, they don't want no parts of that still to this day. They'll make the money.
They'll
off
make the
of
money,
it,
yeah.
if they think that's going to sell.
Right, and that's a good segue to my next question. When you hear that term, culture vulture, what you define that to be? Do you think it's a legitimate term, or if you do, how do you define that when you hear that?
Yeah. I mean, I think it means someone that is trying to make money from the culture, but isn't of the culture, doesn't really respect the culture, and really doesn't really respect the people, the community from which hip hop came. And even though hip hop is a music everybody loves, like I said, white, black, Chinese, man, whatever, we all grew up, we all love hip hop, and hip hop is a culture that's accepting of everybody. But at the same time, I always believed as a white man in the world of hip hop, I had a responsibility to really be, aware of, the conditions out here, the realities of the situations out here, and what black folks have gone through and the reasons why they're going through these things, and just really to make that something that was just front and center, not to shy away from it, not to brush it off, make excuses or whatever like a lot of folks do.
Right.
So yeah, I just think culture vulture is someone that doesn't really feel that way. That just feels like, hey, it's a free world. I can make money just like you can, and I don't have to care or do anything or be, responsible or be, conscious of these types of things because this is just business and just making money.
Right, and a lot of people reference that with and I know you're not a controversial person, we don't want you to be, but I know they reference that name a lot with Leon. Do you think he fit that, or you think that's a bad rap on him, or you rather not touch it, or?
I mean, I've known Leon, 30 plus years, and he's, Leon's very smart, very shrewd, and and he was in hip hop long before I was, when he started working with Run DMC and everything. So I think Leon has a genuine love for hip hop, and I think, it's not just about money for him.
Okay.
But I also know his other side. He can be ruthless, and he won't have any qualms about it. But that's that's a lot of people, not just in the in the music industry, but in all business. A lot of people believe that in order to be successful in business, you have to be cutthroat. You know, you don't have to have morals
Right.
and ethics to what you do. And that's never been me.
That's your policy.
I believe you can be a successful business person, but still be a decent human being and still care about people and how you do things and how it affects people. And you can still be successful. You don't have to stab somebody in the back, you know, any chance you get just to get to the top.
Next level, right? Yeah, and it's crazy because I was so naive with the hip hop whole the business side of it back then. Anyway, just being a music fan of it. One time, the Leo he calls me. He actually called my house. This early '90s. Keith Holmes, a boxing champion from D.C. He came from New York one day. He said, "Man, a guy from Def Jam gonna call you." And then, you know, Leo or whatever. I said, okay. He said, I said, what's up with him? He was like, man, he asked who throw the biggest parties in D.C., and I told him it was you. And he said he wanted to holler at you about some stuff. I said, cool. So he called me a couple of days later. Now, I keep in mind, I don't know nothing about it. I know Russell Simmons, you know what I'm saying, we come to Def Jam, right? And Kevin Lau, right? So he called me. How you doing, man? This is Leo. I said, how you doing, buddy? He said, yeah. He said, man, yeah, I just want to, you know, they told me you throwing the biggest parties, man. I don't know if you into the music. He said, man, we have a lot of acts in, you know, Def Jam. I said, I'm a little familiar with Def Jam. No, he said, yeah. So I don't know what type of party. He said, you got a nice crowd. He said, man, we're going to be having some acts come through. So he was like saying, we're going to have Montel Jordan come through there or something, right? I guess he was making a record or something about it. So I say, yeah, he cool. I like him. I say, yeah. I say, but I like the kid y'all bringing out the DMX dude. I like DMX. I say, my crowd might be, you know, they like that. So he said, oh, you do? He said, can I put you on 3 line call? So I said, okay, go ahead, right? So he pulls up Kevin Lau. So now Kevin Lau name familiar to me, right? So now I'm like, man, he called Kevin Lau, right? This is a big boy in Def Jam, not knowing who he is, right? So he gave him this grand introduction. This to Michael Jordan, Def Jam, and this is man is puts him in. I don't know. And he was like, man, go ahead with that. So he said, now can you tell him could you tell him what you told me? And I said, yeah. And I said, now we loving DMX down here. He gonna be something. He gonna be the one or whatever, right? And they just went off like it was like I wasn't on the phone. I guess they had some behind the scene, just rival conversation about what he's saying, what he gonna be, what he ain't gonna be. He was like, I told you. They get to going back and forth, and he ended up telling me, can I call you back? And that was then. I ain't never heard from him. Then, right? I talked my way out of something, right? I don't know what it could have been, right? But every time I hear his name, I always think about that, right? I think because they beat his name up a lot, so I was wanting to get. I know you've been in the industry, so I was just trying to get a real perspective on, you know, your opinion about that, right? Okay, so if you was given a huge budget to start your record label 2022, and they say, man, you only can take one head record label, one guy to run your record label, man, and I'm gonna give you selected names, man. You had the choice of Damon Dash, Russell Simmons, Herb Gotti, Suge Knight, Master P. Who would you select? Who would you give that budget to, and why would you select them to run your company?
Well, I mean, in 2022, I don't think really any of those guys are really, you know, close enough
Right.
to the music anymore, probably to really be effective. I think there's a lot of younger guys out there that could probably do a much better job of building a record label today. Take nothing away. I mean, you know, out of those people, you know, they all, you know, accomplished a lot of things. They're all, you know, been really good businessmen. I mean, Suge doesn't get the credit for being a really smart businessman the way he should. You know, he really, you know, set the tone for things like owning your masters and things like that, you know, very early on before anyone else was talking about that. You know, Master P was a brilliant business person in his day. You know, Damon Dash is, you know, he's a very, very smart guy. So they all have their you know, great qualities, but I don't think of any of them as being you know, really connected to the music to, you know, today. I mean, Irv is still, I guess, trying to do music now, but I don't think anyone else of those guys. I mean, Dame is doing more like rock. He's got his rock band, and I think he's doing some music, but it's not like current hip hop that he's focused on.
And when you look back in the heyday of your company, and is there any artist you can think of that's like you ain't understand why he didn't blow? He was talented, but you don't understand why he ain't blow. Is there any artist come to mind from that era that you know the source?
Um, I'm sure there is. My memories
Right.
not that
Nobody
sharp on
jumping out you like
certain
that.
things that nothing really comes to mind. But I know if I had time to
Right.
sit down and think and study, I probably could come up with a few that I thought were gonna get a lot bigger.
And you named you know some top rappers you consider was top guys. What you think the main criteria should be of even making that list? I hear different reasons. I hear people say freestyle, don't write your own. What you think the main one or two of the main things should be to make that list?
I mean, I think it has to be a combination of things. I mean, lyrical content, your voice, and delivery and style. It's just something that is gonna make you memorable to people. And I think with Pac, who I said was my number one, I mean, he just was the most kind of authentic, in terms of his content and the passion, the diversity of subject matters he was able to talk about and make relatable. They all have different qualities that make them great, but those are some of the ingredients.
So much your mind. Who are your top 5 female rappers of all time?
Female rappers of all time. Let's see.
I mean, you go on your source, but you get back in source mode.
Right. Man. I mean, Lil' Kim is in there. I mean, I think some of the, Nicki Minaj and Nicki Minaj has probably got to be in there. Lauryn Hill, I would put.
Her name come up a lot in that
way
rap.
up there. Yeah, Lauryn Hill was amazing at her peak. Same one, Foxy, Latifah.
What about Remy?
I think Remy's extremely talented.
Okay.
I wouldn't put her as one of my top 5, but she's up there. I mean, she's very, very.
And all the ones you named, you had to grab one of them and to go battle a top guy. Which one would you grab out of that crew you just named? The battle a top guy. Would MC Lyte make your joint?
I like Lyte, but I was never like as big of a Lyte fan. When Lyte first came out, I was much more of a Latifah fan. They kind of came out around the same time. And I was much more of a Latifah fan, and never got as much into Lyte's music. But so you said out of them, who would I pick to battle?
To battle a male top rapper.
I mean, battling, you gotta. I mean, that's when somebody like Remy comes to mind. I think she's got that kind of lyrical, just fierceness about her. I mean, I don't think of Lil' Kim as a battle rapper. I don't think of Lauryn Hill as a battle rapper of any kind. Latifah, same thing.
Yeah, I was thinking Remy too. I was wondering, was you thinking that? And if I'm not mistaken, like your ethnic background, you Jewish, right?
I am.
Okay. I don't know why I remember that. So, what's one of the biggest misconceptions people have about Jewish people?
I think, I think, let me see, what's the biggest misconceptions? I think that, I think part of the misconceptions come from what people have seen and learned about the Hasidic Jews in New York City. A lot of it comes out of New York City because we don't really have a big Hasidic Jewish community here in D.C. So the Hasidics are the ones with the long, hair and the glasses and the beards, and they're all, there's a whole huge community of them in the New York City area. So what I noticed being in New York is people that grew up in New York judge Jewish people based on the Hasidic. And the Hasidics are like, they're like a very, they're like I don't want to say a cult, but it's like they're very different from the average Jewish person, and they have a lot of things about them that can be off-putting to people. Some of the things that they do. So I think that's one thing I noticed that has caused people, because people that come out of New York have a certain perception of Jewish people based on their experiences with that. Right. I think.
Because I know, like in the barbershops and improvement, they always say like it's like an unspoken word that all Jewish people got an unspoken word that they together, like spend the dollars with each other, don't come up their network. So so I was wondering.
But I think Jewish people don't get the credit for being very involved in the civil rights movement. There's a lot of Jewish people that risk their lives, going down south to help with the civil rights movement. So I think that's something that people don't know about Jewish people is that many of them have done things for other communities, not just the Jewish community, but they do stick together in the music business, in Hollywood. Jewish people found success in those industries. Jewish people still, we were persecuted, among the worst of any people in the history of this planet. The slavery that Jewish people went through, it was much longer time ago, but Jewish people have, even to this day, there's still a lot of anti-Semitism, a lot of people that target Jewish people. So I think Jewish people feel a certain sense of defensiveness and of wanting to, we had the Holocaust. That wasn't that long ago in the 1940s. Where millions of Jewish people were exterminated, literally. So I think that is another reason that Jewish people have felt the need to kind of stick together.
Yeah. I did a little bit studying the Jewish stuff. Yeah, I had a horrible joint, but I know that this could be a whole nother podcast about how African Americans feel about being treated versus Jewish. So we ain't gonna open that can of worm, because that'll be a whole nother podcast.
Out the park, niggas know me. Curtbone, little homie. All days, yeah. Been a road, yeah.